Tonight's edition of Carte Blanche, welcome to it. And first up, we tackle Telcom and show you how the monopoly makes decisions that are unfair to us, their customers.
Every month, Telcom sends millions of bills to millions of homes. How do you feel when you get yours?
Many people think their pricing is evil. I think they forget that we are their customers. Is the Pope Catholic? Yes, he is. We are paying their salaries. Does Telcom suck? Yes, it does. Telecom's experts from overseas have said that screwing your consumer. And I believe that firmly, because they are.
Telcom is the only company with a license to provide landlines in South Africa. As a monopoly, it's raking in billions of rands every year. It's a numbers game, and Telcom is hitting the big ones. Last year, Telcom made a net profit of a staggering 4.5 billion rand, exceeding expectations. The shareholders are benefiting handsomely, but the public is paying a price. Andrew van Husselen is so mad with Telcom that he's become an activist. He's got a website called telkomsucks.co.za.
I registered the domain and put up a little chat forum, and I just left it there. I came back 6 months later, and there was just people roaring at each other about, how Telcom, and we must do something about it and overthrow them. Some people are really, really upset.
The whinges ranged from bad service to gripes about Telcom technicians, but the major complaint is high prices.
We're starting up a petition to get hold of as many sign-ups as we can to say, look, please do something about this. This is actually not acceptable. You're actually crippling our country.
A view shared by another cyber activist, Greg Sturton. He's launched an online crusade against the telecommunications giant from his small flat in Cape Town. Greg's site is raising hell at helcom.co.za.
I've had tens of thousands of hits, unique visitors and that. On my stat count, I said just over 260,000 hits in 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks.
Greg has spent hours of his private time researching Telcom and posting what he's found on the web.
Basically, I'm sick and tired of their high prices. Most people are. I think it's about time people read about these guys and see why they're charging so much and how it's all done.
The websites refer to a study done by consultancy NUS. South Africa fares badly as the most expensive out of 14 countries surveyed, according to George Ra.
All right, George, this is the international call cost comparison for 2004.
Well, we are very much the most expensive, at about 125 US cents per 3 minutes, while Germany is down in the 14-15 cents as the cheapest.
NUS says a national call in South Africa costs 37 US cents for 3 minutes. In Sweden, it's only 9 cents. A local call in South Africa costs 14 US cents for 3 minutes, about 23 rand an hour. In contrast, in Canada, local calls are completely free.
Why should it be so much more expensive for us to do business with those countries than it is for those countries to do business with us?
All over the world, new technology is making connecting up cheaper and faster. In 2002, Telkom introduced a new service called ADSL, which allows a user to be permanently online instead of having to dial up every time. But ouch, this costs too much, complains internet businessman and student Rudolf Miller.
300 or 400 rand for the phone calls. We feel these costs are quite exorbitant. In the South African context, it might be seen as fair to pay about 1,000 rand for a 24/7 connection. But if one compares it to international countries, it is much higher. We can say in the region of 300 to 500% higher.
Rudolf is lobbying for better, cheaper, faster service through yet another website, myadsl.co.za. His site has had more than 1 million visits, so it has become too expensive to host at home. He's had to post it overseas.
In South Africa, because of the bandwidth cost from Telkom, we can't afford to host sites that are successful unless one employs a great deal of marketing and advertising on the site. It is somewhat strange that sites developed for South Africans, by South Africans, must be hosted overseas because of the cost of Telkom.
An overseas site costs as little as 60 rand a month to host. Rudolf's Telkom bill for MyADSL was running into thousands.
Our last bill came to about 7,300 rands per month.
Telkom's multi-billion rand profits this year have added fuel to the simmering consumer fire. Greg scoured Telkom's website and found details of pay packages in a document on the investor relations page.
Just millions, runs into the millions, and they get bonuses of between 50 and 100,000 rand. The managers, just too much.
In the last financial year, Telkom CEO Sizwe Nxasana was paid more than 11 million rand. His package included a basic salary of 1.8 million and bonuses amounting to a staggering 8.2 million. We were hoping to talk to him, but he was never available.
So we spoke instead to two Telkom executives. Nombolelo Maholi, Chief of Sales and Marketing, says Telkom has many satisfied customers.
Is Telkom charging the earth for its services?
I don't believe so. I think our prices are very competitive, and of course, there is room for improvement.
Telkom wants to be measured against developing countries, not leading economies. Nombolelo claims that independent reports show their tariffs are in line with world averages, comparable with Argentina, Hungary and Poland.
The average consumer would say Telkom made 4.5 billion rand profit last year. Surely there is room to maneuver.
There is actually no link between tariff increases and the profit that Telkom made at the end of March this year. Tariff increases would reflect in revenue growth. Telkom as a wireline company in up to end of March only grew revenue by 4.6%, which shows that the tariff increases themselves didn't have much of an impact on the revenue growth of Telkom.
So some profits have come from economies, including cutting back on labor.
Telkom is facing another wave of anger, this time from within. Its plan to retrench 30% of its workforce over the next 3 years has enraged those likely to lose their jobs.
This week, the union Solidarity handed a memorandum of protest to the bosses. Telkom says it's acting responsibly.
Enough of it. You know and I know. We're talking about jobs.
The workers don't agree.
I think it's right because they help Telkom to become a company that make a profit of 4.5 billion rand. They help the share price of Telkom to rise from around about 27 rand to 80 rand. That we've expected as workers to get a thank you, but now we get a goodbye.
Telkom is raising this issue on his website too. It's the start of a national campaign. But the General Manager of Human Resources, Opa Magashula, says Telkom has no choice.
Opa, why is Telkom continuing to retrench people after turning in such good financial results?
Well, efficiencies. Our quest to become more efficient.
Telkom is on track. In every way, Telkom speaks the language of the successful corporate.
We welcome some representatives of all our shareholders, but also government as a shareholder is represented.
But because of its history as a parastatal, it's in an extraordinary position of being the only player with a land license. This means we have a distorted telecoms market. And it's holding South Africa back, says Ewan Sutherland, a telecommunications guru.
Those profits seem disproportionate. Now, if you were in a competitive market, would they be able to make those profits? And the answer to that is almost certainly not.
After 20 years in the field, Ewan is now the director of a global telecommunications user group with a world view. He sees other African countries licensing multiple operators.
So we are seeing new developments in North Africa, which is really quite unexpected. So South Africa's preeminent position is under really quite serious challenge in countries who have introduced competition.
Internet companies are kicking against Telkom's monopoly. They say Telkom abuses its position and have complained to the Competition Commission, which has in turn recommended a fine of 3 billion rand. Internet Solutions, a company with 3,000 corporate clients, is one of the complainants. And they're going to court too, says Director Hillel Schrock.
We also have a damages claim in the amount of in excess of 160 million rand for damages that we believe we've suffered as a result of illegal and uncompetitive Telkom action.
In 1999, Telkom froze one of the company's value-added networks, or VANs, claiming it was illegal. It had the power to do this because, as a monopoly, it controls all the landlines in the country. Hillel believes this is typical of the way Telkom throws its weight around.
That's where Internet Solutions gets really angry, where our customers are affected.
So Telkom's not playing fair. They're bringing 16 players to a rugby match.
Absolutely, that's well put.
And the problem is that Telkom is the £900 gorilla which goes around and is perfectly capable of stamping out competition by destroying the small players. It can adjust the conditions of the market very easily.
Mbulelo, is Telkom abusing its monopoly?
No. Telkom, as a responsible corporate service, wouldn't dare do that.
Because you're aware that a number of the vans that you mentioned have accused Telkom of bullying, of uncompetitive behaviour. How do you respond to those statements?
We deny that. In a lot of the allegations, we've been able to prove that those are false. And at any time that Telkom is proven to be anti-competitive in any way, Telkom will refrain from doing that.
But I thought that's what the Competition Commission had already found. I'd like to quote from the report, our investigation has revealed that Telkom has abused its dominant position by engaging in a pattern of anti-competitive practices. This includes Telkom imposing unreasonable conditions for it to provide telecommunication services to the vans, etc. This is the Competition Commission.
Yes, it is an opinion. And in each one of those allegations, we are disputing the fact.
So the corporates and the consumers have been left hanging on, waiting for the regulators to hear their call. Government watchdogs are receiving more complaints than ever before. ICASA Chairman Mandla Langa chooses his words carefully.
I mean, I can't say we are happy or we're not happy. I can just say that we're dealing with issues, with the facts as they stand, as they are presented to us by the policymakers.
Monopolies don't work, says Mandla, but ICASA without government cannot change the status quo. And over the past 5 years, as the prices kept going up, so the lines have been cut. About 70% of South Africans don't have a Telkom phone.
Everybody who wants Telkom's monopoly to end is pinning their hopes on the introduction of a second national telephone service to lower prices. But the second service will have to, at least in the beginning, use Telkom's lines and cables and won't really be able to pose a challenge until early 2007. Until then, Telkom will have free rein.
Telkom says the disgruntled are in the minority, but they are monitoring the protest websites. Nobody knows yet where this groundswell of cyber anger will lead.
If things don't change, if you don't get the kind of response that you're hoping for,
I'll just make a bigger start.
I've got the freedom of speech. At the moment, I don't have the freedom of choice, which is what's getting to me.
Well, all these experiences that have been showcased definitely call for the expeditious introduction of the second network operator. Next up, we bring you another side to youngsters who become violent criminals.